My name's Emily. I'm one of the SC7 dual trainees at ICM Athletics. And I'm going to talk about time management, but mainly I'm going to talk about goals and procrastination and why it's important to set the right goals and what we all procrastinate and what we can do about that. Okay? So it's something that it's never really taught in medical school. It's never taught throughout training. And essentially it's skills about managing ourselves, about managing our own lives and our expectations, and managing, how we get through life. So we're all taught leadership and management training. We all do that wonderful course, but we're never really taught about managing ourselves. So this is what I've come across and what I've found quite interesting. So we're going to look at goal setting and why it's important to set the right goals. We're going to look at procrastination, what we can do about it. And there's this wonderful time management theory called Easy Clock, which I just think is brilliant, and we'll have a little look at that later as well. So essentially all of this is about managing our resources. Now, I think if you boil all our resources down, they come down to these three things: for time, energy, and money. And I would argue that these two are finite. Okay? We have exactly the same amount of time as anyone else in the world, as Elon Musk, as Bezos, any other big high-flyer successful person you think of, has exactly the same amount of time as us. Now, energy, I think, is probably a little bit more person-dependent. Everyone will have a different amount of energy. But I think it's still finite to us. We can only go so far before we deplete our pot of energy. And I like to think of it as if you've got these three pots of energy, and you've got your physical energy, mental, and emotional. And we all know what it's like when we've had a really bad night of sleep. Our physical energy is low. We start borrowing from the other pots. We're less able to regulate emotionally, and can't think as clearly. We just feel tired and not as good. And there's only so far we can go before we've depleted all three pots, and that's when you're sitting in the middle. Okay. And any gains you might have made by pushing yourself will just be completely undone by time to recover. I'm not going to talk about money. We pay other people to manage money for us, but these two finite resources that we have, I think it's really important that we learn how to manage ourselves. If we don't know how to learn how to manage it ourselves, this is what's going to happen. If you don't prioritise your life, someone else will. You will start to give in to everybody else's demands around you without prioritising what it is that you want to do. Okay? Now, Greg McKeown is an author of one of the books that we'll talk about later, and I'll be referencing him throughout the talk. So in terms of backstory, how I got to sort of reading about this, I was late getting an ESFR in for an ARCP. Well, I wasn't late. The college tutor had gone off to somewhere for 3 weeks and was signing up on the morning of the ARCP. But I was the one that had to write the reflection about why it was late. I was a bit pissed off with this, and I was like, right, I'm gonna, do you not know how busy I am? Do you not know what I've got going on? And I ended up coming across these two books. So you might have heard of Marie Kondo. She has this kind of decluttering KonMari method. She's Japanese. I think she's a bit bonkers. This woman says thank you to her shoes and socks. I haven't got time for that in my life. And the other one is the organised mum method. This is a woman who has sort of 3 kids and runs 4 businesses and still finds time to clean her toilets every day. Again, I can't do that either. But several thousands of hours later, you know how YouTube and Amazon all spy on each other on what you're doing, and they start to put things into your feed and what you might like to see and watch. And so I started watching all these different YouTube videos. I started getting all these different book recommendations, and these are the 3 books that I think are absolute game changers. I highly recommend them. I brought my own copies with me if people want to have a look at it. And I'm basically just going to talk about these for the rest of the talk, because I just think they are that good in terms of what they can, the ideas that they've got and how they can really help you. Okay, first of all, we're going to talk about goals. So a goal is an outcome that would not otherwise happen unless you do something. Okay, a goal is not the same as a plan. And to go out for dinner tonight, and I follow my day through as I would. Nothing about that's going to change. I will end up going out for dinner tonight. That's a plan. If my goal was to not spend more than 50 quid going out for dinner, I need to sort of come off that path of least resistance and make the decision and put things in place to achieve that goal. So I need to decide, well, first of all, I'm going to tell my friends who I'm going out with, I don't want to go on 50 quid. We're then going to decide where are we going to go? What am I going to eat? What am I going to drink? Am I going to drive a car? Am I going to get a cab? All those things, that will take you off that path and let you achieve your goal by doing something. You can't just follow along blindly and expect to achieve your goal. So it's an active process, and this is what we're going to be talking about. So James Clear, who wrote the Atomic Habits book, talks about goals and systems. Goals are good for the setting direction, for seeing like where your end game is, where you want to be, but the systems are best for making progress. Now, when he talks about systems, he's talking about habits and the things that the daily routines, the daily habits that we put in place are what's going to move us forward. Now, that doesn't project particularly well on here, but that's Federer. He's quite a famous tennis player. He would have had goals to win however many Grand Slams. He would have had goals to, win Wimbledon. But the goal itself hasn't gotten where he is. It's actually the daily routines. It's the effort that he's put in day by day, the systems he's put in place that's got him to being this successful. And when he's playing the game, he's not looking at the scoreboard. He is focused on the game, on winning the game, and the systems that he's put in place to win that game. And some of the narrative around this is actually, if you ignore the goal and focus on the systems, the goal will take care of itself. Then you'll get there on your own without actually having to have the goal. The goals are good for setting direction, but there are some problems with goals. So the first problem, if you just have the goal, it doesn't differentiate between the winners and the losers, or those who achieve the goal and those who don't achieve the goal. It's not going to, the goal itself is not going to be differentiated. So everybody who's training for Paris 24 has the same goal. They want to do well. They want to achieve. They want to be on that podium. The ones that are going to win are going to have the ones who have different systems and different things in place, different habits to get them there. Okay, so the goal itself isn't actually the differentiator. The next problem with goals is if you achieve that goal, it's only a momentary change. It's only a momentary success, because if you haven't changed the systems in place, you're not going to maintain it. Okay, so this is actually a picture of my spare room. Okay, and my goal can be clean this room up. Okay, and I can spend a couple of hours, tidy it up, but it will not stay like that. It will be like this again within a matter of days. And the reason is because nobody in my house will change their systems behind it. We will still do the washing in there. We will still put the clean washing on the bed and not put it away. And all the coats end up in there, all the toys end up in there. So we've not changed the system. So we're not going to achieve the goal. It's only going to be a momentary change. Okay? That's the second problem with goals. Third problem with goals is goals restrict your happiness. And although it is gratifying and it is, it's great when we've achieved our goal, so when we've passed our exam or when we've done something, but it doesn't give us long-lasting happiness. And I think putting having that narrative, I'll be happy when, really unhealthy. It's unhelpful. We need to find our happiness and our fulfillment before we try and achieve our goals. Okay? So what do we do? So there is a whole university department that are dedicated to behaviour change and procrastination and goal setting. And this guy's written this paper, The Neuroscience of Goals and Behaviour Change. And he says actually to set a goal, a good goal that you can achieve, you need to set it with a will and a way. And what he means by that is that we need to know the why we're setting this goal, and we need to know the how. So the why is the motivation behind it. What is actually our motivation for this goal? And the how is the cognitive processes that it's going to take to get us there. So, the why is that why we want to achieve it. The how is going to be those habits and those systems we put in place to get there. Okay? It's all coming down to habits, just in your head of where we're going. So this may be controversial, but I would suggest that maybe it's time we dump the SMART goals. They have never worked for me. you all know what SMART goals are? Do you remember what the acronyms are? Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, timely. None of that says anything about why you want to do it, and none of that says anything about how you're going to do it, does it? So if the evidence is showing we need a will and a way, a why and a how, this is really not helpful at all. I think it's probably good to use it as a sort of a benchmark of, are we, is this something sensible? But actually, in terms of setting the goal, I don't think it's that useful. So maybe controversial, but I would say maybe let's jump into the SMART. So what we're talking about then are these habits and these sort of behaviour change. Now, if behaviour change were easy, we wouldn't need goals, we wouldn't need systems, we wouldn't need any of this things in place. So true behaviour change comes from an identity change. Okay? And our identity emerges from our habits. So the things that we do again and again and again come from our, intrinsically, come from our belief of what type of person we believe ourselves to be. And the word identity comes from the two Latin words that actually mean repeated beingness. So it comes from that we keep doing the same thing over and over again, because that's congruent with what we believe about ourselves. And it's coming down to that same kind of old idea of if you keep doing what you've always done, you'll keep getting what you've always done. So we need to kind of come off that path of least resistance. We need to sort of change the direction. That requires energy and thought. But the way I can only really describe this idea about identity is talking about dog food, and I apologize. So I am not a dog person, okay? I don't mind dogs. If they want to come up and be friendly and not jump on me, that's fine. But I've never had dogs. I am not a dog person. And when I see somebody picking up dog food, I actually feel physically sick. It just revolts me so much that I almost want to be sick. If you ask me to pick up dog food, it would be a flat no, because I will be sick. Now, when you see people out and about being very good citizens, picking up after their dogs, they're not thinking about that. They are probably thinking about something completely different. It's a habit to them. They will just do it because it's intrinsic to their identity. They are a dog person. They've always had dogs. They will pick up after their dogs. So this is what I mean by identity. Is like our habits come out from our identity, and we will only act in a way that is congruent with what we believe our identity to be. But for me, I'm sorry, no, I wouldn't do it. So James Clear talks about these 3 layers of behaviour change, and each layer is as important as each other. And as I said, these all come from our identity coming through what we believe, what we do, and what we get. And again, this is the path of least resistance that we have always taken. And the path has been created because once upon a time, there was a situation, there was a trigger or a cue, and we behaved in a certain way, and then we got a response from behaving that way, and then we get a reward. So this is what we call like a habit loop. It's stepped up. And if we get a reward from it, if something good happens, we'll do it again. The next time we get that trigger or cue, we'll do that again. If we had an unpleasant response from what we did, we wouldn't be doing it again. We wouldn't form that habit of sort of hurting ourselves, essentially. We go down this route of it's this habit of reward. So these are the 3 layers of behaviour change. Now, what James Clear talks about is that when we're looking at developing new habits, what's really important is we have outcome-based habits and we have identity-based habits. So we often try and change our outcomes. We often try and do something, and we do it enough times that eventually it trickles down and we'll change our identity. We'll believe our own identity of that. This is who we are. This is what we do, based on these outcome-based habits. But what he's saying is actually, if you start with the identity of I'm this kind of person, therefore how should I respond? How should I act? It's far more powerful and far more likely to stick. So he gives an example of somebody who's trying to quit smoking. So 2 people are trying to quit smoking and they're offered a cigarette. The first one who is trying to quit smoking offered a cigarette. He goes, no thanks, I'm trying to quit. So intrinsically, their belief is that they're still a smoker, they're trying to quit. Okay, so they're trying to force this new identity, by repeatedly declining, declining cigarettes. The second person who's offered one goes, no thanks, I'm not a smoker. So they've already changed that identity. So they know that acting as I'm not a smoker, therefore I'm not going to accept the cigarette. It's all about this change of direction that's going on. And what he's saying is that there is an element of fake it till you make it, when you decide that identity change. But if you keep with that identity change, eventually people who believe that new identity are far more likely to stick to their new habits. And this is why New Year's resolutions don't really work for most people. So apparently something like 9% of people who have started a New Year's resolution, 9% are still doing it by September. They just don't stick. Because I think we're focusing on the outcome-based habits rather than identity-based. So then we can look at outcome-based goals versus identity-based goals. So if you have a goal to write a book, that's an outcome-based goal. But if your goal is to be a writer, it's a very different thing. If you are, you're trying to write a book, you have to sit down, you have to write every day. You have to scrap your ideas, start again. You have to get a writer's block. You have to, find something to publish, all this kind of thing. All the while, you're working under this unfulfilled goal of to write a book. Okay? If your goal is to be a writer, every time you sit down to write, you are a writer. Okay? And it doesn't matter that you have to scrap several pages worth and start again, because you're still a writer, and you're a better writer than you were the week before. And you just keep plodding on, keep moving on, keep acting congruently with I'm a writer. And one thing you'll turn around if you've already written a book. So it's that idea of the identity is a more powerful driver than the outcome-based goal. The same with running a marathon. It takes a lot of energy and a lot of planning to run a marathon. If your goal is to be a runner, every time you go out for a run, you are a runner. You are achieving that goal. So, and then you just, every time you do it, you go a bit further and a bit further, and you're a bit stronger than you were last week, and you're a bit further ahead than you were. And before you know it, you could turn around and go, yeah, I think a marathon would be within my reach. It's ironic that I'm talking about running, I haven't run anywhere since 2017. But that idea of actually, it's about the identity, not about the outcome. So, all of this is to basically push us towards meaningful change. Now, our identity is democracy. Every vote, every action is a vote for the type of person you want to become. So when I was sitting with Bickham for the third time trying to get my odyssey out of the way, I had a big wall of pictures and photos and fun stuff just to keep me going. And I had this quote here. Because I would sit there and think, right, if I'm the sort of person who feels positive, what do I need to do? Everything I need to do, I need to ask the question, is this moving towards my goal or is this moving away? Okay. What sort of person, what action do I need to take to be the sort of person who's positive? And you can ask that question for anything. So if you're trying to lose weight, if I'm going to be a healthy person, what action do I take as a healthy person? What is a healthy person going to do? Okay. So each action is a vote to the type of person you want to become. I found that really, really helpful. So this is kind of a question out to the room. Our training programs are very much outcome-based, and they have to be. I'm not arguing with that. But what if our goals were not to finish training, but to become whatever is the next stage we're supposed to try and be? Now, it's been a while since I've crossed any of these thresholds because I've been a registrar for so long. But for those of you who have recently either gone from being a novice to being core trainee or gone from being a core trainee to being a registrar, going up to blue lanyard, what do you think the difference would be if we had that mindset of I'm becoming something rather than achieving an outcome? What do you think?
Your goal is to finish training.
What do you think about our confidence levels when we step up into the next thing? pick on you, John. I know we've had this conversation. So, you know, being given the blue lanyard, maybe before you feel ready, maybe before you, you know, how do you think if we push this idea that it's not about finishing that outcome, finishing that stage, it's about becoming that person and having that mindset. What would the registrar do? What would the consultant do?
Yeah, I think we the few signs that we just being forced to say that introduce yourself doesn't really tell me the person saying it. Like, I don't believe it's not true.
Yeah.
And then eventually it's like, oh no, I'm saying it.
Yeah. But this is what I mean. Like, if we had this idea of, I mean, I know you've been a consultant last day, but do you think that if we change this mindset of about identity and become something, rather than to get the box ticked, rather than have the CCT, but actually to become that role. I mean, there will still be that element of, oh my goodness. Yeah. But do you think? I mean, it's been a long time since I've crossed the threshold, so I don't know.
But even like the saying, like that's,
yeah.
I don't know when that happened, but like, when you start to say that.
Really don't feel like you are.
Yeah.
I remember when I was a medical student, I remember watching that and going, I want to be like that. And then I suddenly did it in the next week in Boston, and I turned out to some medical emergency, and everybody stepped back and looked at me and went, oh, right.
This is not what I wanted. Yeah. So I've only been thinking about this for the last couple of weeks because I've been writing this talk. But it did occur to me that I wonder if we changed our idea.
Yeah, you want to finish training and get a CCT, but actually that doesn't help you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the components is learn how to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is an element of fake it till you make it.
There is.
But you've got a piece of paper to say you're allowed to fake it till you make it. Because you're safe.
Calling yourself.
Yeah. 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 Have any of you guys recently novices? How do you feel about now being called an amateur against Exactly. You're not stepping up. You don't want to step up because you've been so fixated on getting the IAC that you haven't had that basal time or the encouragement to think of yourself as an ethic or as a full training. You know, and this is what I mean by we should be encouraging each other to actually think one step ahead of this is what you want to become, not just to pass the exam, not to get through this bit of training, but to become, become this new, to become up at this level. Yeah. So I just think exactly. So yeah, exactly. So I just thought that was an interesting point, and so this is how I've just left. This is the end of the goal section. Okay, so we're over halfway. So take a breath. This is my favourite little character dude, Calvin and Hobbes. I'll maybe just let you read that a minute while I just swig. You want to Calvin and Hobbes? So that's his imaginary friend. Well, it's his. The tiger is his stuffed toy that he talks to him. He talks back at him. Okay. Now, the irony of talking about procrastination now is that I did the first half of the talk. It just flowed out. I kind of knew what I wanted to say. And then I got to this point. And do you think I could write this? It just took so long. And it was the beginning of the week. I was like, I've got to get on and do this part of procrastination. And you'll see why it took me so long in a minute when we go through. So there are actually two types of procrastination. There's a productive type and there's a destructive type. Right? So the productive type is actually really important when it comes to anything with a creative element to it. So, thinking up a project or a way to do something, anything sort of blue sky thinking or creative process, it's okay to actually set it down to the side and have a break and to maybe pick it up in a week. If you just let all those ideas linger, you can look around for the life. If you you don't pick it up, it does become disruptive procrastination, which is avoiding something that needs to be done. Okay? So, I found this really interesting, but the main cause, and this is all based on research, so again, there's whole university departments that are looking at this. The main cause of procrastination, can anyone guess that? Any offers? Don't want to do it, boring, feeling lazy, perfectionism, can't do it properly, so I'll do it later. Actually, the main cause is stress. Now, I found that quite interesting because it makes a lot of sense. So, this guy, Timothy Pitchell, he is somebody, I think, in Canada, and he's done all this work about stress and procrastination. And he says that procrastination is a subconscious desire for us to feel good right now. Okay? It's an emotional regulation problem, not a time management problem. And I think that's really, really important. If we feel lousy when we procrastinate, we feel like we're lazy, we think there's something wrong with us. But it's not about that. Our brains are hardwired to avoid threat, to make ourselves safe, to feel good now, and put the preservation of self. And when we're stressed, our brains are just craving to have something good happen now. It's not even that we're stressed about the task we're avoiding. It's about the fact that we're stressed about something else, and our brains are just absolutely craving something to feel good right now. We just want that little kick of dopamine right now. And whether it's avoiding the task makes you feel better, whether it's watching something on YouTube makes you feel better. And we all know about, I mean, I presume, well, you've all done medical school exams, but when you come to like doing the FRCA exams, they're a tricky beast because no one will tell you when you have to have done it. You know when you have to have done it by, but you have a sort of variable couple of years to get it done by. And what happens is, you know you need to do it, so you book it, and so you feel like you've committed to it, but you don't start work yet because, quite frankly, you're stressed because it's completely overwhelming. Where do you start? There is so much to do. So you just leave it off for a few weeks because it's not coming up yet. It's a long way off. And then you finally decide that you need to start. So you get into it, and you know your productivity level goes up. You get on with it. You're fine. You're doing okay. And then you kind of peak, but you don't realise it. And what happens is then you start to realise that your procrastination level is increasing. And you're just finding that it's harder to sit there for any length of time and do anything about it. And it's because you're stressed. It's because the exam's getting closer. You're getting more stressed. And your body is doing everything it can to not sit down and do some work because you just want to feel good for it. You just want relief from that feeling of stress. And then you get to a point where you actually can't do anything because it's 2 days before the exam and everybody knows that feeling of actually I've done what I can. There's nothing new going in now. I'm just going to try and chill and make it what I know. And it's that kind of cycle of stress that is, you know, we all know that our bodies are trying to move us away from stress. So this is what they call sort of the stress cycle. So we get stressed and we don't want to do the thing that's hard or difficult, even if we're not stressed about that, but we don't want to do that. We want to do something that makes us feel better. So we do something that makes us feel better and we feel better. And then that becomes that vicious cycle of a habit. Like I said, when you get the reward that's a positive reward, whether or not it's good for you is irrelevant. When you get that sense of reward, sense of relief or well-being, the next time you get that trigger or that cue, again, you'll just avoid it again and you'll go back to doing it. And this sort of spirals into stress. So somebody out on the internet, who I'll show you in a minute, has called this the instant gratification monkey. And this is where, you know, the monkey in your brain has basically taken hold of the wheel and he is going to making you feel good. And there is nothing you can do about it. It's a sense of loss of control. You don't feel like you can like do anything. It's almost like paralysis that you know, you just can't focus, you can't do anything. And it's because of the stress. So this is a guy who came up with the instant gratification monkey. He is called Tim Urban. He's got a fantastic TED talk. I highly, highly recommend this TED talk. It's brilliant. He's also got a really good blog called Wait But Why, and there is loads of stuff on time management, procrastination, loads of stuff on that. So if you want to have like, if you want to waste some time about procrastination, I highly recommend these two things. Okay. Oh, I'm brilliant at it. So yeah, I'd highly recommend you watch Tim Urban's talk. Okay, so just a warning, it's about getting a little bit of fluffy bunny stuff, isn't it? So we've identified that this is an emotional dysregulation. It's an emotional problem. There means that there will be some sort of emotional fix and trick to sorting this procrastination problem out. Now this, I wouldn't have put this in because it just grates on my nerves slightly, but it is based on research. So it's self-forgiveness, allowing yourself to move on and focus about the burden of past habits. So they studied these students who had procrastinated on the test. They then looked at them, the ones that forgave themselves, gave themselves permission to be okay about it and to move on and not to worry about it and to forgive themselves. They were less likely to procrastinate when they did the next test. Okay. I think that's a bit mind-blowing. Just to say it's okay, we can move on from that. And the other one is self-compassion. I'm going to have to read what this one does because it was just too good to miss. So self-compassion, which is treating ourselves with kindness and understanding in the face of our mistakes and failures. Now, what did it say about that? Let me read it. So several studies show that self-compassion supports motivation and personal growth. It decreases our psychological distress, which we know is the primary culprit of procrastination. It boosts motivation, enhances feelings of self-worth, and fosters positive emotions like optimism, wisdom, curiosity, and personal initiative. So, this is based on research, okay? And there's a whole book about this woman from did about self-compassion and just being kind to ourselves, okay? So what are we going to do to stop the process? We're going to admit that we're overwhelmed, we're going to admit that we're stressed, and we're going to give ourselves a break. Okay? Start with. And then they talk about these things called starting rituals. And what they mean by that is basically anything that you do that kind of gets your body and your mind in that idea of, right, we're doing something. It's like getting ready for action. So, like sports stars and actors, they all have like these little rituals that they do before they go out to play a game. Like football teams have the same song that plays in the stadium, and they all have these little quirks. Now, some people would say that is superstition. Maybe it is. But some people, what they're calling it the starting ritual, is actually, it's getting you in the zone. It's getting your head in the right space to do it. Okay? And actually, they're proven. These starting rituals across all different walks of life, all different cultures. They've been proven that they decrease the stress and anxiety and increase confidence because it's giving you back that control. When the monkey's gone mad with the wheel and you feel like you've lost control, this is you taking back control and feeling that you are in control and that you can break through with it. So the only thing you can really do is just get started. There is no other option. If you're procrastinating about something and it's stressing you out, you just have to get started on it. And I'm really sorry, but there is no other way. You have to just start revising. Okay, you just pick a topic and you go. Okay, you just get started. You just have to. So there are good ways to get started. Okay. So getting started is the hardest part. There's no doubt about it. It is the hardest part. I mean, this is. There is some kind of law of physics that says moving an object from stationary is harder than one that's already in motion. I made that up. The point is, once you've started and you get momentum, it's easier to keep going. It's the starting of the problem. So this is a really, really powerful tool that just 5 minutes matters. Whatever you do, just set a timer, whatever it is, and just say, right, I'm just going to do 5 minutes. Now, you'll never pass the exam by just doing 5 minutes a day, don't get me wrong. But it's that I will just do 5 minutes and then see where I am. So if you do 5 minutes and then set your timer, time goes on, like, oh, actually, I've started now, it's okay, I can go a bit longer. Or you do 5 minutes, go, right, I've had enough, I'm just going to stop. So you stop for 5 or 10 minutes. And then you decide again, right, I'm going to start again. And the more you do it, this is like this habit process, this developing this habit of being able to start. Okay? And then you don't, that's all you have to commit to. All you have to do is just start. Just set that timer and just try and commit to that. So another thing I do, which is pretty sad, if the kitchen's a mess, the living room's a mess, and I really don't want to tidy it up. If I've got a TV program on that's got adverts in it, I will make myself tidy up during the advert. Okay? As soon as the show's back on, I'll sit down again. But working in those little chunks of time, by the time Vera's worked out who's done it, my kitchen's clean and my living room is tidy. But it's packing those little times that you can just think, actually 5 minutes rather than procrastinating over it, rather than having this element of perfectionism like all perfectly right now, so I won't bother. Just do a little bit. So, right, we're nearly the end. We're going to start talking about frogs in a minute. So, yeah, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start. So, eating frogs. Now, Mark Twain is supposedly credited with saying this. If you had to eat a frog first thing in the morning, a live frog, you could go through the rest of the day knowing that you probably just done the worst thing. Probably the worst that's going to happen with it. Now, he didn't work in line to you, so maybe it's not true. But the point is, pick the worst thing and do it first. Get it out of the way. Just get it done. And then, so what it means is picking the tasks on your to-do list, which you're most likely to procrastinate on, doing the worst job on your list, or that's important and has the biggest payoff. So you just need to look at your to-do list and decide which of these is the frog that I've got to eat today. Okay? And he says there's 2 rules for eating frogs. If you have to eat 2 frogs, eat the ugly one first. So if you have 2 horrible jokes, you have to eat the first one first, because you can only get better. And the second one is if you have to eat a frog at all, it's probably best not to sit and look at it for very long. So if you've got that task sitting in your to-do list, just get on with it. Get it off the to-do list. And that builds momentum. It keeps you in charge of your agenda. So yes, you do it first, do it before anything else, and you do it for completion. Now you may not be able to complete a whole task, but you can break it down and just say, right, I am going to do this part of this. I am not doing anything else. And you will find that what this does is it makes sure that we're setting our own agenda. This goes right back to the beginning when I said, you know, if we don't prioritise our life, somebody else will. If we don't prioritise getting these 50 jobs off our to-do list, they will never get off our to-do list. Somebody else will give us something else to do, no doubt. And when you've done the worst one, that's only going to build momentum. You're only going to find that you'll actually feel like you can do something else. And motivation, when we sit around waiting for motivation, it never comes. It is a myth, it's a lie. Motivation will follow your action. And when you get started, you'll find that your motivation will follow. And that's the beauty of why 5 minutes matters. You'll start momentum, you'll start to find your motivation. Okay, so that's one problem to get. Yeah, so in summary, goals are good for direction, but habits will move us forward. So it's really important that you set those systems in place and that your goals are appropriate. Identity-based habits are far more powerful than outcome-based habits. Procrastination is a result of stress and is actually a habit, a bad habit, and we can break it. 5 minutes matters, and identify your goals first. And that will be my starting topic. So these are all the books and things that I've talked about. Thank you for listening. Mel Robbins has a fantastic podcast. I highly recommend you listen to her podcast. She is absolutely brilliant. She looks a bit sort of cheesy American there, but I'd say that she's a what is she? She's a lawyer. She has a radio show and she's got one of the best podcasts in America now. She's brilliant. She wrote the 5-second rule. Atomic Habits. If you're only going to read one book, I would say Atomic Habits. And I would highly recommend you look at Tim Urban's TED Talk. Any questions? Any ideas?
I like that the outcome versus the habit.
It really is. That all comes from Atomic Habits, and they just. I haven't even finished the book, and I just found the first part so brilliant.